Welcome to Into the Abyss. I'm C.W. Breyer,
Kevin Lucia.
Tom McDonough.
and only two of us are wearing underwear. Stay tuned for more. Um, no, we're going to be doing a little bit different format. I think we're trying different things out. We're going to try and just compact all these videos together tonight. We're just doing a few sessions, right?
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, change it up. Whatever. We try different things. First thing we want to talk about tonight, it is currently Women in Horror Month.
Yep.
It's actually going to be the last one. So the idea is in February, put a focus and a spotlight onto the women writing horror and into the work that they're doing. I think it's had a good effect. I think a lot of people have been paying attention to it in recent years. It's going to be the last one though because people have said for a while, why are we also doing Women in Horror Month during Black History Month, which would seem kind of like a distraction. There's opportunity for.
So they're actually ending it.
They're ending it this year.
Okay, so I didn't know this.
Yep.
So this is the last Women in Horror.
One.
You know what though? I think Women in Horror Month is a great idea, but like I think that we should be reading women in horror like all 365.
Well,
all throughout the year.
Surprisingly, you said that because the official statement was, this should be a all year round thing.
Yeah,
that's what they said.
You shouldn't have to wait till February to pick up a horror novel by a woman.
Right. No, I agree, but I think it's the idea of having that spotlight. So I think the big thing here is, I think it's just put a pause on the fact that they're overlapping with Black History Month.
Right.
When, to be honest, I think there's been a lot of growth in recent years with women in horror. I think the big push now is minorities are getting left behind. So I think that actually might be going forward, maybe a focus there. The other thing too is they could always just move it to a different month.
Right.
It was right. I think it was March was recommended. So it's the last one in February. Well, we'll see. It either goes to more of an annual focus or they're going to just move to a different month.
Okay.
But in celebration of that, Kevin, you want to go first?
Sure. So I'm currently reading two books by women, and again, I have to say this: I'm reading them now simply because they were next in my TBR pile, not necessarily because it was women in horror. But the one book that I'm working on right now is Everything That's Underneath. It's a short story collection by Christy DeMeester. It's just a wonderful collection of work. It's horror. It's magical. Realism is very surreal. There's touches of fantasy there, folklore. And it's just very, very good stuff. And I've read her novel Beneath, which is just a phenomenal novel. So I highly recommend both those by Christy DeMeester. I'm also currently about halfway through Kelly Owen's newest novel, The Headless Boy. Now, first of all, if you haven't read anything by Kelly Owen, you're gonna need to change that now. The Headless Boy is a married couple that are struggling with the miscarriage of their first child, and now as they've moved into this big new house, and the wife's trying to recover, and it's very apparent that this house they've moved into is maybe not necessarily empty, and that maybe Maggie, the one who lost the boy, has found a surrogate son of a sort. And I won't go any further than that. So I'm really enjoying that right now as well. And I do have to throw in and again, this is just coincidental, but my AP class is just going to start reading. We're reading Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
The OG.
So I'm rereading that. I'm rereading that again after a very, very long time. So.
Yep.
So that's currently what I'm reading this year for Women in Horror Month.
Okay. Tom, do you want to go?
Well, Kevin stole my one on Mary Shelley, but I just want to add on to it. She is the original writing stories when women were not supposed to be writing stories at the time of the Victorian era.
At the time overshadowed by the men in her circle.
Exactly. And not to mention, of course, if you read it, if you just know the story, the big issue is playing God, because that's what Victor Frankenstein did. And in the end, the Frankenstein's monster, not his fault of what has happened. It was just man overreaching. But I did want to throw in there Gail Ann Hurd, by the way. Most people know Gail Ann Hurd as a producer on the Walking Dead series. And she's been in it since day one. But it turns out she was a producer in a lot of earlier horror movies, probably dating back to the 1980s. And I know maybe it's Well, she's not a writer; she's a producer, but that's still
Chuck went to get some booze, I guess. I don't know.
Well, we're not doing like individual segments, so
okay.
so gotta
Yeah.
go.
So I mean, I like how
Oh no, we can do it.
you have women in
'Cause
horror
I'm
who
not
are
streaming live
behind
tonight.
the
I have to
scenes.
figure that out. Yeah.
Oh,
They can't shut up.
Yeah, yeah.
They can't.
Sorry, sorry, Tom.
It was my time.
Sorry.
My time.
Continue,
Anyways,
sir.
we got a lot of women who are behind the scenes. I just don't think they're getting the credit. Maybe that's hopefully can change soon.
Your turn, sir.
I was saying, okay. I think that's definitely changing for the better lately. I've noticed a lot more focus and a lot more interest in the women who are writing horror, and I think a lot of their names taking off and things like the Bram Stoker Award. So I think there's good progress there. I'm going to recommend an author, and that's Anya Alborn. She's become one of my favorite horror authors in general, not just for Women in Horror Month, but just fantastic writer. Very descriptive. She does a wonderful job of getting into the head of the characters and just residing in there. Very creepy writer. I've read two novels from her and one short story. She was in Other Voices, Other Tombs, and I think I've seen her story get the most praise out of all the short stories that are in there. And since Kevin and I are in this book, that means we have to recognize our betters. No, she's a fantastic writer, but the two novels I'm going to recommend are The Bird Eater and Brother. The Bird Eater is, I'll describe it this way. Bird Eater is more like my sweet spot in horror. It's a classic haunted house type story out in like rural Arkansas. So I very much enjoyed it just because that's the kind of book that's fun for me. I love a classic ghost story. She does a wonderful job there. So that one was maybe more fun just because it's the kind of story I like. But I will tell you, Brother sticks with me more. I just recently finished the audiobook for that. Very well narrated as well. Brother is a gut punch, and you see things unraveling. You know it's going to go bad, and you can't look away. You're just kind of waiting to see how the chips land, so to speak. For that one, instead of being a haunted house story out in Arkansas, it does another rural setting. This gets into the Appalachias, and the focus is on a hillbilly family in the Appalachias, cannibal family that are kidnapping people.
Appalachian hillbilly cannibals.
Yes, kidnapping people who are hitchhiking. This takes place back in the 80s.
Wasn't that chili you made us?
Yeah. If you're into classic rock as well, that'll give you extra motivation to read Anya's books because she likes to incorporate classic rock and classic punk into her stories, and you see it there with both stories, but especially with Brother. What's interesting about this one is, unlike your typical story, which is told from the victim's perspective, it's actually told from the perspective of an adopted family member in the hillbilly family, in the redneck family, that was essentially kidnapped and brought in and became a part of their family, and is abused and manipulated and tortured by his sibling, his brother, and the family in general. And you're there, you're residing with them, you're seeing the family drama that goes on there. So I think Bird Eater is a classic, wonderful haunted house story, but Brother is something special in that it brings something that I don't think I've seen in other tales. A very unique, original story. So I highly recommend both. And I've read some of the short stories from Anya Alborn. Loved everything from her.
Very cool. So go check those out.